What's up, everyone? Today I am going to do my, annual cleanup of this Mame tray. So in case you haven't seen them, there are at least 2 older videos about this same tray of trees. And some of the trees have changed and others are still the same ones. I think this maple has been around for quite a while. And so I'm going to take them all out and sort of clean up some of the trees to remove moss or weeds, and then also take a look at the moss that's in the tray, as well as the design of each one of the trees. So while I'm removing them from the tray here, you can see that I'm cutting off escape roots from the bottom of each one of the trees. And that's because the entire purpose of the tray is to sort of provide a backup area for the roots to grow into, because Mame, being in such small containers, don't have a tendency to grow very quickly. So this technique really allows me to get much better growth, like what we're seeing here, out of a tree in a tiny, tiny container, while simultaneously largely keeping it confined. Now, if you choose to do a Mame tray like this and you are sort of allowing the trees to run as long as I have, it's a good idea to do this at a time when the trees are largely going dormant. So as I'm filming this, it is early November of 2024, and the trees are actually growing, but here in Northern California, the climate in November tends to be very mild, and so I'm not too concerned about severing some of the roots. So as you can see, there are little divots in the moss from each one of the containers and the branching shading out the moss and whatnot. But I also have a big clump of liverwort here, and I really don't like liverwort, so I'm going to actually take out all of the liverwort, including any of the moss that is infested with it, and try to keep it under control so it doesn't take over the entire planting. Now, underneath here is just some fine lava and akadama, basically the size of lava and akadama that you would sift out from a normal bonsai mix, and it makes a really good substrate in terms of keeping the temperature even on the bottom of the containers. All right, and with most of the liverwort removed, I'm going to set this aside and start working on the trees. Okay, starting with the junipers that were in the tray, I'm just going to go through these kind of one by one and do like a light cleanup. There's probably some more wiring and work that I could do to each one of them, but I want to concentrate on just getting the tray cleaned up overall, and then I'll come back and do repotting, wiring, and styling to each one individually. This one is an Itoigawa. The other 3 are Kishu. If you want to pick up bonsai starters, you can get them both Itoigawa and Kishu on Bonsaify.com. This one got kind of overgrown, so I cut back all of the growth on the top here and just sort of let it back bud and re-bush out this year, while allowing the growth down here to run a little bit. But ultimately, I think I'm going to cut this off and gin it. I don't want to mess with the lifeline too much, because as you can see, it's kind of starting to have some nice character here that is not easy to get in such a small composition. So I'm going to allow these buds that are back here on the backside and on that lifeline to continue getting a little bit more robust before I go in and cut off all of that. I should also say that all of these need to be repotted as well. This little Itoigawa is, I had it wired and I unwired it, so it looks like it needs to be rewired because it's gotten a little bit too big. And the wiring, the process of wiring it was really meant to bring the foliage back closer to the main trunk. So I might also put a little bit of gin in here, for example, ginning off this section and just rewiring these branches that are coming from closer in order to be the crown. That's one of the things with Mame, is that you're always looking for opportunities to simplify and or reduce the size of the tree, and oftentimes just 1 year's worth of good growth is going to get you to the point where you need to actually go ahead and pull the trigger on that. All right, with all 4 junipers cleaned up, I am going to move on to the Cotoneasters, but first I'll just show you. I couldn't help myself but to put a little additional Shari on this one starting up here and twisting around down to the front there. So the lifeline was already twisting, but I thought that separating it into 2 distinct lifelines over time would make this a much more interesting tree. All right, so with all the trees cleaned up, I'm going to rearrange the trees back into the tray. I picked off all the liverwort, but I'm under no illusion that picking off the stuff that is visible is going to entirely deal with it, because it's just like moss where it'll spread via spore. So I'll just continue picking it off. I like to arrange the tray somewhat aesthetically, but with so many trees in it, it gets a little bit crowded looking. And as a practical matter, it's more about keeping the trees healthy and growing than it is just about the aesthetic arrangements. So I'm making some sort of a compromise here. All right, and with that, I have had a little bit of fun and cleaned up this tray full of Mame, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 of them. And I think I'm going to leave the hawthorn out because it just makes the tray look a little bit too crowded. That wraps up this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next time.